When I look at a physical object, the books behind me, or this Pearl Jam album or what have you, I'm not seeing the thing itself, right? I am seeing my mind's mental reconstruction of the energies and the light and the radiation and all of that that's bouncing off of these objective phenomena. I'm not seeing objective reality itself. I'm seeing my own interior reconstruction of that reality. So everything that I experience is actually taking place subjectively. It's all taking place in my upper left. Even when we're using the same signifiers, quadrants, stages, states, etc., the referent behind that, so like what that signifier is actually lighting up in each of us, is going to be a bit different from unique individual to unique individual. When I think of the 4 quadrants, my mental modeling that emerges when I say that word, or the visuals that I see, or the sort of the inner geometry of how I make sense of 4 quadrants, is going to be a little bit different than yours, right? And it's always interesting when we can learn to communicate in such a way that we can sort of bring more granularity to how we are communicating our own unique sort of enactment of these signifiers. Because I think people sort of take for granted that if we're using the same word, we're talking about the same thing. The way orange is going to internalize and model the 4 quadrants is going to be a little bit different than how green internalizes it, which is going to be a little different than teal and turquoise, let alone all of the other personal and cultural constructs that we're bringing to those enactments, right? Like, I hear 4 quadrants, that is going to resonate with my entire lifetime's worth of accumulated experiences in a particular way, and it's going to resonate with yours a little bit differently. So even when we're using the same word, it's kind of vibrating for each of us in a somewhat different way. The music it's generating for each of us is going to be just a little bit different, and that is fascinating. That is it's a fascinating and beautiful thing. Which Carolyn asked about. So she just asked a question. Can you give us a quick definition of cosmology? And I've got a little 1-minute thing I want to say here, Keith, and then I want to hear your answer. So cosmology, Carolyn, what we basically mean is your mental modeling of the universe, right, of reality, and of your place in it, and all of the various details and patterns and structures that entails. Now, one thing that I've been feeling into lately is how, our relationship with something like the 4 quadrants, for example, kind of matures and deepens over time. Beginning to understand the 4 quadrants as a representation of sort of a more systemic wholeness. It deepens over time. One of those deepenings that I've been sort of finding myself contemplating these days is how, there's a temptation to look at the 4 quadrants and be like, okay, here's the upper left. This is everything that's taking place in my mind, right? This is everything that's my interior. The upper right, that's out there, right? The lower right, that's out there. These systems are out there, right? And lower left, this is sort of between us, but still out there. It's not in here. It's out. It's in here among us, but it's not in here in terms of just my own subjective experience. However, when we really feel into it, we begin to notice that all of this, all 4 quadrants, this is my cosmology, all 4 quadrants are arising in the upper left. All right? Because these 4 quadrants are simply describing the perspectives that we use to disclose various aspects of reality. And all of those perspectives are upper left quadrant perspectives. So imagine the 4 quadrants on a piece of paper, and then you zoom out a little bit and you realize that all 4 of those quadrants exist in the upper left of another set of 4 quadrants, right? So it sort of turtles all the way down in a sense. But the idea is that no one has ever fully seen or understood a system. Not a single person who's ever been alive has fully understood something like an economic system. Instead, what we have is our own mental models of a system that's all taking place in our own interiors, right? That's true of our relationships. Keith, your voice is inside my head, right? When we have an intersubjective meeting, that's not to say that there's not something actually between us. There really is. But my experience of that, my modeling of that is taking place in my upper left. When I look at a physical object, the books behind me or this Pearl Jam album or what have you, I'm not seeing the thing itself, right? I am seeing my mind's mental reconstruction of the energies and the light and the radiation and all of that's bouncing off of these objective phenomena. I'm not seeing objective reality itself. I'm seeing my own interior reconstruction of that reality. So everything that I experience is actually taking place subjectively. It's all taking place in my upper left. And all of that, the grand total of that, is my cosmology. It is the totality of my mental modeling of myself, of you, of us, of it, of all the systems, of every holonic level. All of that fits together into something that is Corey's cosmology. And when it gets really, really interesting is when I take Corey's cosmology and Keith Witt's cosmology, because let's remember, the universe is a singularity that forgot it never stopped being one. So it's all the same territory ultimately, but my cosmology is going to differ from your cosmology in these really, really fascinating ways, these deeply fascinating ways. And so when we actually sort of compare our cosmologies, there's an explosion of new energies, and we're literally, new worlds are coming into being when our cosmologies begin to overlap and begin to sort of resonate with each other, harmonize with each other, and it's a beautiful thing from my own experience.
In the dialectic, I want to convince and be convinced. I want to influence and be influenced.
Right.
I want to change you and help you change me.
Yep.
The dialectic is people engaged in that focused way, that open way, open to influence and being influenced, open to self-examination, open to being wrong and being right.
Yep. And not overly attached to their own constructs.
Not overly attached to their own constructs.
When we're engaging with others, and all parties are capable, as we were saying, of sort of toning down the opacity levels of their own constructs, right? Where we're not so attached to a particular way of thinking or a particular mental model or a particular self-concept. There's an experience of the group that I think every node every individual in the group is probably having some version of, where you look at each other and you recognize each other as aspects of your own mind, right? Like, my mind isn't just contained in my skull. It is an entire ecosystem that stretches out and reaches out and expresses itself through every individual that's participating with this occasion and this moment, right? So there's a distributed sort of feeling tone of mind, where we begin to realize that this voice of Corey is just sort of a seamless part of this larger mind that is enacting itself through each of us.
Yeah.
And what a vibe that is.